How do you know when your food company is ready for a cookbook? Welcome to Everything Cookbooks, the podcast for writers, readers, and cooks. This is Kristin Donnelly, and I'm here today with Kate Leahy. Hey, Kate.
Hey, Kristin.
Today, our guest is Pooja Bavishi. She is the founder of Malai Ice Cream.
I really wish there was a shop in San Francisco because her ice creams, like looking through this cookbook, I was like, I want to taste that. So many great flavor combinations.
I know. They're so good. They're all South Asian inspired flavors. She does have shops in Brooklyn, DC, and Philly if you're lucky enough to live there. But I'm kind of interested also in the idea of when is the right time to do a cookbook as a brand?
Right.
Is it when you're already super established, or is it when you're kind of on the way up? And also, like, how branded is too branded?
Right. I mean, you have experience with this when you wrote Rice's Life, a chronicle books, but that was with a company.
Yeah, it was with Lotus Foods. And for them, they were pretty established. They wanted to do it for their 25th anniversary. Malai is 10 years old. We worked with Chronicle, and they didn't want the book to feel too branded, right? They wanted it to be like just appealing to anybody who liked rice. With Malai, the name of the company is the name of the book. So people need to perhaps know the brand or at least be curious.
And I suppose the difference, too, is that when you're talking about a rice cookbook, what Chronicle probably didn't want is in the ingredient list to have like the brand of rice in the ingredient list. Where with Malai, these are recipes that you're buying the dairy products, the spices, and those can come from any sort of brand. She gives you guidance, but she doesn't say you have to buy this particular brand. It's just the flavors that are really what her company is about and the idea of frozen desserts. So it's a little bit different that way. And I guess there are a lot of like successful ice cream cookbooks that are based on a very popular ice cream shop. And this is part of that movement.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I mean, Jenny's is based in Ohio, very successful ice cream book. But I was going to say there's a lot of like New York based shops, you know.
That's true.
A lot of publishers there.
That's true. You're thinking editors are sort of like, oh, I'm walking down the street. Oh, you know what? Like, I really want to do an ice cream book because I really like this ice cream that I eat multiple times during the summer.
Yeah.
I know with restaurant cookbooks, when I worked on A16, originally one of the owners of the restaurant wanted the logo on the cover. And I remember 10 Speed saying, no.
Yeah.
It's not like that. That's not going to do you any favors. So there's always this push and pull. I think you want to have that editorial sensibility, but you also want to respect the food company or the restaurant behind the ideas too.
It's such a delicate balance, but it is such a cool book, and the ice creams feel so doable.
Yes.
It all feels so doable and
it
really
does.
appealing.
Like the ice cream recipes fit on one page. You know, you're not like making a lot of like creme anglaise.
There's no custard.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not worrying about like eggs curdling because there's no eggs in them.
Yeah, it's such a fun read, especially this time of year.
All right, well, let's bring on Pooja. Welcome to Everything Cookbooks, Pooja. We're so happy to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Before we get into your book, we just wanted to talk about Malai a little bit. Tell us a little bit about the business.
I started Malai 10 years ago now, which is insane to think about. It is an ice cream business focused on South Asian flavors and ingredients, really to revolutionize the way we experience ice cream in this country. There's so much good ice cream out there, but it really did feel like there were certain flavors that were always present in your local ice cream shop. And I'm first generation Indian American, and the flavors that I grew up with that were so ubiquitous in my household and to millions of people around the country weren't really presented in the ice cream world, and I wanted to change that. And so I wanted to change the way we experience ice cream by introducing flavors like rose and cardamom and saffron, and really just make that as normal and as typical as you would find your cookie doughs and your cookies and cream. And that is through becoming your local neighborhood ice cream shop, but you might find a different flavor, and your favorite flavor might not be chocolate and vanilla.
Well, you know, that's a really good point, because when I was reading the headnotes to your book, one of them said that the rose and cinnamon roasted almonds ice cream is your most popular flavor. Is that still the case?
Yeah, That is still the case. That's still the case. And we have over 70 flavors in rotation now. It's kind of crazy. That's what 10 years will do. But that is the only flavor that never comes off menu because it is so popular. It feels like that's the defining flavor for Malai. It's one of the original ones that I created. And 10 years ago, I almost didn't launch it. Like rose is such a common Indian flavor, like dessert flavor for sure, but even ice cream. Like you find rose ice cream in Indian grocery stores, at Indian restaurants, and at any family gathering or celebratory moment, rose ice cream would be present for me in my growing up. So I knew I wanted to create a rose ice cream. And when I did, I wanted it to be different in some way. Like rose and cardamom are often paired together. Rose and pistachios are often paired together. But I was doing a lot of research on like what else could go with rose that would be a little bit different, but also a little bit more accessible. At that time, even 10 years ago, rose was certainly not something that, you know, the mainstream audience knew about, but cardamom wasn't either. What could be an access point for anyone who was just like coming up to the Malai stand? And so like I did a lot of testing and came up with rose with cinnamon roasted almonds. And even then I was really nervous. I was just like, I don't know if anyone's really going to go for this. I love to be proven wrong when it comes to stuff like this. And New Yorkers were very ready for a rose with cinnamon roasted almonds. And it's continued to be the most popular flavor. And I wonder, like, there is like a lot of questions around why. And I wonder if it is just because it's just so different that people are curious about it. It's surprising. People don't know what rose is going to taste like, or they have this like notion that it's going to taste like perfume. And when it doesn't, they're really surprised and delighted by it. And the fact that it's pink, but all of those things contribute to its success.
And people reorder it.
It is a fan favorite. Yeah.
Right now, your business is ice cream shops, but there's also like a CPG, consumer packaged goods side of it as well, right? Where we could go pick up some pints.
Exactly. Yes. We're in grocery stores in the Northeast. We also have scoop shops in Brooklyn, DC, and Philadelphia. And we're opening actually in Manhattan next week. So we're rapidly expanding our footprint. And then we ship nationwide. And I think that's the easiest way. Like, you know, even our grocery store presence is very concentrated to the Northeast. And so that's the easiest way if you're outside of this area to get your hands on a pint.
Nice.
One of the things about running a business is I'm sure you have no shortage of things on your to-do list. I'm really curious about what made you think, okay, on top of all the things I do, expanding my business, opening stores, developing a wholesale business, also managing a team, when did you decide, oh, you know what I also want to add to my list is a cookbook?
To be fair, I had no idea what went into writing a cookbook until I started that process. So forgive me forgive like all the cookbook writers should forgive me there because I had no idea. My God, it is its own thing completely. And it was a ton of work. I obviously knew it was going to be work. I obviously knew it was going to be separate from the business, but there's just something about, first of all, I love, love, love cookbooks. Like I love just like the act of going through a cookbook and reading about someone's story and understanding this person's journey through their recipes. I love that. I love that it's like completely memorialized in a book with beautiful photos, with beautiful stories. And I could spend hours, like kind of pouring through cookbooks. And so I always, in the back of my mind, knew that I wanted a cookbook for Malai because it's such a story-driven brand, because that is such a part of who we are. And like the sharing aspect is so much a part of who we are as well. And so like one of the things that really just stood out to me in terms of like one of the goals for the cookbook is that, you know, I started Malai in my New York City apartment with a KitchenAid attachment, right? Like like I had a chest freezer. I was making a quart at a time. And I would fill up my chest freezer and then sell it at like street fairs in New York City on the weekends. And that's how the business started 10 years ago. And there's something so special to me about taking those, obviously like our recipes and formulas have changed since then, right? They have to for operational purposes, for scale. But to take those original recipes and to give them to our audience and our customers and our fans that have supported us so much through this journey, and to be like, you can do this too, right? On your KitchenAid attachment. Like you can share this with your family and friends. It's just another way for people to experience Malai. And I found that aspect of like bringing it back home to be just so special. And so that is one of the main reasons why I wanted to write a cookbook. And then I knew, that like the cookbook writing process takes years. And so like when I started the process, when I was like just writing my proposal 3 years ago, I knew kind of the trajectory of our business as well. And I knew kind of where we would be at this point. And so like, even though we could have waited until we were bigger, like there's always that question. I knew that this was just like a really amazing inflection point, where this was going to be an inflection point for the business, where we were going to grow from like 1 to 2 stores to double that, and we were going to grow our CPG business. And I just think the added element of a cookbook, of like trying to access a new audience with that, was going to be really important as well. In terms of the timing, I kind of knew that like this was the year.
That's so interesting that, yeah, because you have to have that foresight with books a lot of times, since you're writing it so far in advance of when it will come out. And then I guess with your business, you're also working with that foresight. And so trying to, it's not predict, but plan where you'll be at the time when the book comes out. But then when selling the book, you're still maybe earlier in the business. So how was that process for you?
Yeah, I mean, it's foresight, but it's also a hope and a prayer, right? Like you just like need to make sure that like things are going to happen. But yeah, in terms of selling the book, like that was another reason why I knew that this year was going to be important, because we were going to have more outlets to be able to sell the book like directly. Obviously, like an ice cream cookbook is a tough sell, right? Traditionally, you need an extra piece of equipment to kind of invest in an ice cream cookbook, and therefore invest in the ice cream making process. And I've tried to message as much as possible that this book, even though you absolutely do need an ice cream maker for some of the recipes, I tried to add as many shortcut recipes as possible. Some like condensed milk version of ice cream. There's an entire chapter dedicated to baked goods to eat with ice cream or toppings. But there's also an ice cream desserts chapter where like I literally say, go out and buy a pint of ice cream to make this showstopper dessert. And I think that like for that, I'm trying to like have people understand that it's as inclusive as I can get that this ice cream cookbook to be. But like I do understand like in terms of the selling of the book, it's a pretty niche single subject book. And so because it goes hand in hand with the business, it's about building the brand to the point as well, that like people are such fans of the brand. They're so devoted to the brand that they would want to kind of take a peek inside this book as well.
Tell me how you found your agent.
I actually, we did a collaboration. Malai has been such an important supporter of Malai and me. We kind of reached out very randomly many years ago, being like, can we send you ice cream?
Nice.
Cool.
And she's been incredibly supportive. So we were doing a collaboration with her for her previous book. We had a collab ice cream, and she did an event at our Malai Brooklyn store. She's so supportive, but she was obviously talking to all of her fans. But her team was there, and I was kind of like, it was right when I had just written the proposal, and I was like, I'm going to do this cookbook thing. And like, when I say that I had no idea what this process was like, I truly had no idea what this process was like.
You have like a superpower in writing a book proposal because you can do the business side really well. Because, right, it's like one part, like the editorial side, and one part, the business side, and how you're going to sell the book. But what did you know about writing a book proposal to begin with?
No, nothing. So I always wanted a cookbook, like before I even started Malai. Like I love recipe writing. I love cookbooks, right? But the first person who actually mentioned anything about a cookbook was my photographer, who I've been working with since when I first started Malai. It's the same photographer who photographed my entire cookbook as well. She's the only one I would want to work with there. I love her so much. And we have a great relationship. And that very first shoot that we ever did together in 2016, she was like, just so you know, I want to photograph your cookbook. And I was like, my cookbook? And she was like, oh, for sure, you're going to have a cookbook one day. Like, tell me if you need any like tips there, like need any help. And I was like, do I need help? I'm going to need some help. Fast forward many years, I really want to like start thinking about a cookbook. What do I need to do? And she was like, let me connect you with a friend of mine who helps with cookbook proposal writing. Because I had no idea. I had no idea what goes. So no, I don't have a superpower in figuring out what is in a cookbook proposal. I had help. I have a good team. And so this woman, Caitlin, who I also love dearly, she like kind of guided me through this process of writing a cookbook proposal and like, you know, like told me about comps and told me about what makes us different. And that part is very similar to running a business. So I felt very comfortable in that. But like even recipe writing, you know, like I conceptualize all the recipes for Malai, all the formulas for Malai, but I'm not writing it in a way that it will be consumed by an at-home maker, right? And so like even the recipe writing was so difficult for me because I was like I can't write it this way and it has to be in this particular order, and like what is the visual here, and like that was all very it didn't come very naturally to me. I have this cookbook proposal with the help of Caitlin. And then I was ready to like distribute it.
As you do.
As you do. So then you have this great Molly Yeh connection.
Her entire team is like, who's your agent? And I was like, agent? Oh, I didn't know I needed an agent. They're like, you definitely need an agent. And like Molly was like, this is like actually kind of embarrassing, but like during this entire conversation, Molly's just like listening to me being like, this cook proposal, I'm going to go distribute it. And so she came up to me afterwards, after the event, and she was like, Pooja, I'm going to introduce you to my agent.
Oh, nice.
She was such a fan of the brand that she had already gifted our ice cream to her agent, now my agent, and Jonah, my agent, her agent, was already a fan of the brand because of that. And, you know, like having Molly's seal of approval definitely didn't hurt. So started talking to Jonah at that point, and he was so supportive, so wonderful, and got an agent at that point, worked with him. That was just, as I learned now, like as I know now, that was just the beginning part of this entire process, even though I was like, wow, got that done.
And so ultimately you made this book with Weldon Owen. I guess I just want to get into like the writing. You talked about this a little bit, but also the creation of the recipes for the home cook. Because you said you started that way, but I guess had you not written down the recipes in that way?
No, because they were for me. First of all, like I'm very grateful that not in a way that I would ever recommend for anyone else, but like I had this in my drafts folder in my email. I had every single recipe that I had ever written at the very beginning of Malai. And no, like I don't write, and maybe I should now, but like now that I have the practice, but I don't write these recipes for my kitchen team in a cookbook styled way.
Sure.
Right? Like it's in a table, and like it's all like everything is scaled out. My editor at Weldon Owen suggested that we don't have, you know, weights for our measurements, that we do the cup and teaspoon and things like that instead, because it's a little bit more accessible. But even that, like I had to reverse it actually, because for my kitchen team, I'm doing everything on the scale, like precise. It's also like now you put it into the machine and like the machine will do so much of it, right? Whereas the home cook has to whisk constantly and you know, like things like that. So like there was a little bit of we've scaled up to this and now we have to bring it back to this. But because I did have those original just kind of notes and measurements and things like that, that's what I really had to retest to make sure that it was still working. Our masala chai, for example, the way that I conceptualize that recipe is that I still make chai every single day. It's something of like so a part of my growing up. It's like such a staple in my household. The chai masala or the chai spices that I use is my family's recipe. That was always the case. But when I originally made it for Malai, when I tested it at home 10 years ago, I made it the exact same way that I would make a cup of chai, except I used an ice cream base. So I like had this ice cream base and I added the sugar. Well, the sugar was already in there, but I added like the spices and I added the raw ginger. And then I added CTC tea, which is like the black tea that you need to put in there, right? And then I let it come to a boil. I let it come to a double boil. Like that's how you make chai, the actual beverage. But that doesn't make sense for a commercial kitchen, and that doesn't make sense for scaled operation, right? So we've switched that to using a dissolvable spray dried tea. We don't bring it to a boil twice. We can't do that. At scale, we can't make it like that. But I wanted to make sure, like obviously when we scaled the recipe, I wanted to make sure that it tasted like the original. But because I hadn't made the original in so long, I wanted to make sure that the original tastes like what we have now.
Ah, interesting. Yeah.
Oh,
so like it was playing around with that because I didn't want, you know, people who know and love Malai who like have these flavors at their shop or they get it shipped to them to think that it tastes any different than what they get. right? And so like I needed to make sure that like it did translate back and forth, which I hadn't done in years. And so it was a little bit of that testing. And honestly, those recipes, like the beloved Malai recipes, probably account for 20% of the book. And then everything else, they're completely new recipes or they're ideas that I had in my head that I never got around to testing. So that is a part of it too, that I was recipe testing all over again.
Wow. How long did this process take of recipe testing?
Well, another thing about this cookbook writing process that I was surprised by is the very first thing, as you know, that you turn in is your table of contents. That was very surprising to me because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to be testing. Like, I don't know what I'm going to be making. So I like got these ideas out of my head and put them in paper. And honestly, I probably was true to that original table of contents by about like 80%, 85%. Like I'm actually pretty impressed with myself. Yeah. I also have, because I'm a wildly disorganized person when it comes to this, I also in my drafts folder have all of these ideas that I have for Malai, right? That like have worked, haven't tested, or did work, but we didn't actually launch them. The good thing about this cookbook writing process is that it's now all safely in a Google Drive instead of my drafts folder. I was able to pull from that. I also had a blog in the mid 2000s, like most people who like loved making things. And so I pulled a lot from there, the recipes that I created. And then it was like, I went to, like I still have family in India and I used to go, before I started Malai, I used to go every single year, if not multiple times a year, to India. But after starting Malai, I haven't been able to get away. But I was able to go for like kind of the research process, like a few months before my first manuscript was due, my initial manuscript was due. Oh, cool. Which also just like, I mean, I don't know if it like actually translated into a single recipe in the actual book, but just like being surrounded by people who like I just met so many food makers and like business owners, and it was like a very different kind of India trip because I didn't just surround myself with family. I like specifically was like trying to do research. And like, it was just an inspiration to be surrounded by that rather than this is what I'm taking and translating to ice cream. I wasn't doing any of that, but like, I think it just got the creative juices flowing a little bit more and really was able to like fill out the rest of that book because of that. Came back from India in January and immediately started the testing process. And because this is a Malai book. The Malai kitchen team like helped me a lot with the testing process. So I would give them recipes the next week. They would not only have them ready for me to taste, but they would write down what worked, what didn't, what they think needs tweaking. So that was so helpful in that process as well. And it sped things along because 100 recipes is a lot to test.
There's like two aspects to it being a branded book. One is how does it speak to your brand, but also speak to people who don't know the brand, number one. But then also like how much is it a company book versus just like a you book? And it sounds like your company was super involved.
Yeah. I mean, not only in the testing process, but afterwards, like my brand and marketing team as well. And obviously, like I consider Morgan, my photographer, to be a part of the company, even though she's not. I just wanted this really like this team that I absolutely knew that I trusted and cared so much about the brand. Like it is a brand book, right? The name of the book is Malai. But I think that so much a part of me is a part of Malai. And so I think that continues in the book as well. Like I always say that these Malai flavors that are in stores and in our scoop shops are not authentic to anyone else but me. And that's what the book kind of tells as well, right? That like these are my stories and I'm inspired by it. But I know that you will relate to it. Like, I know that will inspire a story for you and that will inspire like this moment of nostalgia for you as well. And that's what I love about food in general. But that's what I'm trying to do with Malai, right? That like, it doesn't matter that you're not Indian or you didn't grow up the same way that I did. Like, you will still have a connection to these flavors. And what's like so cool about any kind of food company that has lasted is that you are developing your own memories from it. We have regulars at all of our shops and, the same way that I get to say that I went to TCBY every single Friday night in the summer as a child, like they went to Malai, right? That's what they're going to talk to their kids about. And I just like, I love that aspect of it. And to like have this additional layer of a cookbook and that they'll be able to make it at home is even more special. But yeah, like I think it's just like the company is a combination. I think the book is too, right? It is a brand book. It is a brand book that I wrote. It's my stories, but the ownership should be like many people, right? That ownership over the book should be the company.
Did you get any pushback from publishers when your agent was shopping around the proposal with people who liked the idea, but they didn't want like the branded book? They wanted a different name, or maybe they were thinking frozen desserts, hard sell. Did you hear anything like that?
I actually got the opposite pushback that the brand isn't big enough yet. People aren't going to know the brand. The feedback that I got, and this goes back to like what the timing of the book should be, right? The feedback that I got is that we should wait until the brand becomes a little bit bigger. And like, there are multiple reasons why brands put out books, right? But like I said, I think that for me and for Malai, it was important that like in this period of growth that we were going to be experiencing, the cookbook was a part of that. And like I never wanted the cookbook or a cookbook to be an afterthought or after like, we're considered quote unquote established, that at that point we're putting out a cookbook, right? Like that seems, I don't know, like Jenny's is a role model for us in so many different ways. Like it's such a stellar company, and Jenny herself is such an inspiration. And also Jonah was her agent.
Yes.
So
oh my gosh.
so many parallels. So like it's one of the best performing ice cream cookbook there is. And she also debuted it at a time when like they were growing. They weren't grown. That really inspired me as well. Like it didn't necessarily inspire the timing. I knew that that's what I wanted, but it kind of gave me the confidence that like, okay, even though I'm getting this pushback, even though there are these bigger publishers that are saying to wait a year or two, it's okay for me to say, yes, this is what I want right now. I'll pass on that right now. And maybe there'll be room for another book in the future, which makes sense. But for our original recipes and things like that, this timing felt right.
Yeah, I could see that because I could also see, you grow, you get to a point where you're too busy to even think about putting together a cookbook. So that could also happen. Tell me a little bit about the recipe list. So some of it is the original Malai recipe. Some of it are completely new ideas. And you also have this great balance of non-dairy frozen desserts as well. How did you decide the order of recipes that you put in the book?
The order of the chapters made sense for me because I knew that I wanted to start with just pure ice cream. And because we offer more dairy than dairy-free ice cream, I knew I wanted to be dairy and then dairy-free ice cream. In terms of the recipes within the chapters, to be honest, like in the chapters, ice cream desserts and baked goods and toppings, I really took my editor's lead. I didn't want certain recipes back to back. We obviously thought about like which ones were photographed and which ones weren't, like those kind of things. For those first two chapters, the order was actually really important to me. And it's because just like knowing the flavor so deeply and like just being so intimate with it that like I knew that it had to go in a certain order and to tell this story. I knew forever that the very first recipe in the book had to be sweet milk. And this wasn't the case when I first started Malai. I had different bases for every single ice cream that we offered. But as we grew and like what Malai is now, we have the same base for all of our ice creams. And that base is our sweet milk ice cream. And so I knew that before anything, I wanted to kind of establish that and be like, this is your base. This is what you need to know before you know anything else. And then we can move on to everything else. But like you can flavor this in every which way that you want to. You don't have to follow the book recipes. Like go at it, like have fun. And I knew that that had to be the first recipe. Then second, I knew had to be rose because it's our most popular. And then it like told the story of like what the first ice cream I ever created was, what is doing well at Malai, what is your favorite, right? Like I think that like I just really knew that those beloved recipes had to be front and center in the first chapter for people to like to really get excited, number one, but also I wanted them to make it, right? Like I wanted them to make it for themselves. And then if you flip through, those recipes are present there in other subsequent recipes as well, like use the orange fennel for this, use the coffee cardamom for this. So like I wanted to like kind of establish that base.
Was there ever any consideration of having the sweet milk recipe and then constantly referring to it as a base rather than writing out, I guess, each recipe over and over?
So no. So in the book, sweet milk is not the base for every single recipe.
I see. Okay. It's not. Okay.
Yeah, because it's the original recipes that I had for Malai, I did have a different base for each recipe, but it's just to establish the fact that like this is what we do at Malai, the company. you can do whatever you want with it, right?
You can go wild.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can have any mix-ins, any flavorings. You can do whatever you want. This is the recipe for that.
I'm curious to know how many KitchenAid bases that you've gone through in your whole, like from going from a home ice cream maker to then testing this book.
No, it's really sturdy. It's the same one that I've ever had.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And this is not even an endorsed episode.
They're great.
Yeah.
I got my KitchenAid. This is the only thing that I've ever woken up early on a Black Friday sale for, which is my KitchenAid mixer. I was in college and I got my KitchenAid mixer at that time, which is the same KitchenAid mixer I used to start the business on, which is the same KitchenAid mixer that I used to test these recipes for Malai on. So it's been decades, not to age myself, but it's been decades that I've had this KitchenAid mixer.
That's amazing.
I love the rate of return on that investment.
Exactly. The KitchenAid attachment is a freezer bowl ice cream maker, a freezer bowl ice cream maker. And the only thing is that I have gotten multiple bowls to be able to test multiple recipes at one time. So I do have 4 bowls.
That makes sense.
And a chest freezer to put that bowl in.
Yeah. Right. Actually, I was going to get into the photo shoot because I feel like shooting, I mean, you're used to shooting ice cream because of your brand. Was this different somehow for the book?
So different. I mean, we're used to shooting ice cream, but we're used to shooting ice cream twice a year and it's like a one-day shoot. We don't do these week-long things. And like, honestly, so much of this process is a blur to me because it was so, like, it was actually so insane. And honestly, like if it wasn't Morgan who was shooting the book, I think it would have been a lot harder. Like she just knows the brand, has been so instrumental in developing that brand identity that it was so easy, right? Like she knew what I wanted before I even wanted it. She knew what I wanted even though I didn't know I wanted it, right? Like it was very easy to have that relationship. But that said, it was a whole new beast. It was actually over a week-long shoot. We did a couple of different shoots. So it probably in total, it was about 2.5 weeks. It was the first time we were using a prop stylist and a food stylist, which I'd never done before. I never will go back because it was amazing. Like even the preparation for it, kitchen team was kind of making everything and then making several versions of it. So just in case it started melting, we rented these big chest freezers to like go into the studio. You know, ice cream is finicky. And so like, what time will we take out the ice cream? Will it melt by then? Oh my God, have the second one ready. Like it was just like a lot. There was a lot going on. And honestly, like that first day in the studio, I was a little bit like, this makes no sense to me. Like, what are we doing? Like, none of this is fitting together. Like this prop and this ice cream, like it was unlike anything we had ever shot for the company because for the company, we have very set parameters on how we're going to shoot. It's going to be in store or in a kitchen setting. And this is how we shoot all of our ice cream. But this was like, for the cookbook, every single shot was different. And that almost was like too much for me to process. And I'm just like, well, if it's different, how will it become a collection? Right. And like, I didn't have that foresight. And like Morgan just kept being like, just trust me. Like I'm just getting us there. You need multiple photos.
Wow.
And that first day we didn't hang up any photos on the wall. And so I remember coming home and like calling Morgan afterwards and being a little upset and like just being like, how is this going to come together? Like, what is this going to look like? And then the next morning, she and her assistant were like printing out photos. They were putting them up and they were just like, Pooja, it is coming together. Like it is going to come together slowly. Like every day we're going to add photos here, but look, like it's already a collection. And then like there were a few photos that like we couldn't get to that Morgan ended up shooting in her apartment, but like she shot it same style that we shot in the studio. And so like even those just like felt so much a part of the collection. Anyway, I did not trust the process at the beginning and I really needed to. It was like a hard thing for me to like kind of wrap my head around just because it was such a big project to be completed in this very finite period of time. Like photos were due. And I was just like, after photos are due, what do we do if I don't like them? You know, like it was just, it felt like a lot of pressure.
Right. Was it when you saw these images, there was like a disconnect? Was that kind of what was going through your head? You're like, this isn't what I imagined?
Well, it's for our brand, you know, we don't shoot that much. We do shoot lifestyle, but like there's not a ton of lifestyle that we shoot. Or if we are shooting for lifestyle, we have a very specific we have a brief on what we're doing. Like we know that this very specific recipe has to be shot, or this very specific, like holiday, like we shoot for the Valley, lifestyle for the Valley all the time. Like it's very, very specific. And so like we were adding a little bit more, like this is getting so technical for photography.
No,
but like
we love it.
We were adding like more like shadows in this, and like we weren't trying to make it like super white and like super brand. Like it was like very much like home styled shots, right? That like would have different shadows coming in. It would have different props. And so my prop stylist, who's incredible, she kept saying on that first day, we need more sparkle. And she would like put like a glass of sparkling water like near the set, like the scene, right? And I'd be like, what is she doing? Like, why do we need this? Is not a drink book. Like, why do we need this? And then by the last day, I was like, babe, we need some sparkling water. Like, I didn't even get like what kind of dimension that adds. I just had no concept of it, none whatsoever. So like, even though I had an idea of what the book was going to look like, I didn't know how we were going to get there. And so like that process, and I'd never worked with a prop stylist before. I had never worked with a food stylist before. So like even that was just so new to me. She's not scooping yet. Like what's happening? Like we need an ice, and she like waits until like the exact moment and it's a perfect scoop, right? Like it's just like, I just like had no reference point for it. And so even though like I had an idea of what it was going to look like, this wasn't the process that I had imagined. I don't know what I had imagined. Like the visuals of the book is like, I'm so proud of it. Like I'm so proud of what we created as a team. And so Monday was a tough day, but Tuesday onward, I was fine.
I've been on shoots like that where it's like Monday's like the shock and everyone's like, and then like Tuesday you get into the groove,
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
I know what you mean, because like I think on a shoot sometimes, especially when you're used to a different kind of schedule or process, like it seems like things take forever and you're like, what is really happening? We're not moving fast enough. But then it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's just a different like energy or pace or something. Can we talk about your wardrobe for the photo shoot? Because I loved looking at what you were wearing in the shots. I mean, because it looks very natural. It doesn't look like you were trying too hard or anything, but you had to think about that. That's another element, right?
Yeah. So before I answered this question directly, I would say that the hardest part, take it for what you want, was my nails. That was like the hardest part for the cookbook, because Morgan was like, you can't have the same color nails for every single shot. I'm sorry.
Oh my God, I didn't think of that.
Oh.
So this is like such a stupid story, but I'm going to tell you anyway.
Yes.
I don't have patience to get my nails done, number one. But I don't have the patience to get my nails done every single day. Like that I have zero patience for. I was like, what am I going to do? I bought press-on nails. Okay. That was my hack. It was the first time I had used press-on nails, and I was putting them on, and then like I used too much glue, and so then they were suctioning like the nerves of my nails so hard that my fingers went numb. This is such a stupid story, but this is real life. This is cookbook making. And so like then I couldn't feel my fingers. I had these nails on me, and I was like, what do I do? And so then I had to like go to a salon, and they had to like pick off these nails. Anyway, that was early in the week as well, because like we had started the lifestyle portion of the shoot that weekend. So it had already been like Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Like I was changing my nails every day. And then after that, like I just went to the salon. I was just like, I cannot risk losing my fingers for this.
That is so funny. I don't think I ever would have thought of that.
My gosh. And the thing is, your nails do look amazing in the photo shoot.
I'm so glad.
And now I'll never look at them the same.
It was a journey. But the wardrobe, I mean, like this, honestly, like I was pretty used to it, because this is what, even for like the 1 to 2 day shoots that we do, I go through many outfits because we want to like kind of show a span. And so that's a part of the photo shoot. When we're going through the shot list, Morgan wants to see what outfits I've picked out as well. And so it was just like an elongated version of that. It's fun though. It's fun / stressful.
Yeah. I was looking through it again, because the challenge with single subject books a lot of times is, how do you not make the same photo composition over and over? Yeah, the team did such an amazing job with the varying of the shots. So each one like shows the ice cream well, but it's a different scene.
Right.
Where like the wardrobe really did that I wasn't used to as much is, I'm very used to like picking out dresses and looking nice for photo shoots. But this is where like the photo team was just like, you should have t-shirts picked out. You should have aprons picked out. Like it should look like you're making things at home. And I think that was really helpful because that's not something that we do for Malai as a company. Like, you know, we're shooting things very specifically for holidays and things like that. And so we like go for that. But it was helpful to know that like I need to go to Target and get some t-shirts and that will also photograph beautifully.
That does make a lot of sense because when you're shooting for your company, you don't need those home style kind of shots.
Exactly.
But now I'm looking at the orange fennel ice cream, the photo across from that, and your nails look amazing. and also the dress looks great.
Those are the ones that got stuck to my finger.
Oh God.
Look closely.
So you probably hate that photo now. You'll never look at it the same.
So as we're wrapping up, I'd love to know if there's any piece of advice you have, especially for a brand owner with doing a cookbook. So I was going to say in terms of timing or how to bring in your team, but really whatever little piece of advice you might have.
I think that both of those things are actually really important. I don't think I brought in my team as intimately as I should have at the beginning because I just thought that this was like, you know, I didn't know what to expect from the publishing team, right? And the editing team. Like I didn't know how closely they would be involved, how much details I was going to get when I would get them. It was just like this ongoing process. And as a business owner, it's really helpful for me to have milestones and for me to know what I'm working towards. And you don't necessarily, except for certain dates, you don't necessarily have that. You have the initial manuscript, the deadline for that, and you have the final edit, but you don't know how much work goes in between. And I think that like stuff like that, I was just assuming that I would be kind of led through that process. And at that point, when I started leaning on my team more, it became exponentially easier because I just had more eyes on it. I had more opinions. And so like, I think that I would say to lean on your team from the beginning, to like involve them in the process from the beginning, even if you think that there's no role for them quite yet, there will be. It's easier for them to like see that big picture and like see the whole process rather than for them to be inserted kind of later. I'm really proud of the book. I'm really happy with the timing of the book. And I think that that's the only thing that I was questioning when we were kind of going through the process of kind of shopping the book around. Because we really did get a lot of feedback saying that like maybe wait a year, maybe wait 2 years. Even if it were the exact same book as it is now, it would have been a completely different book. I think that like that gut feeling of just like knowing when it's good for your company, just stick to that. Like there's opportunity, even if you think that doors are shutting, like there's opportunity there and it's what you make of it. You're the book's biggest advocate, right? Yeah. Like I think that that's the number one thing that I've learned from this process. No one is going to fight for your book and no one's going to market the book the way that you are. As long as you know what the book is and what the book's worth and you're 100% behind it, which you are because you wouldn't do it otherwise, put everything you have behind it and start early.
Awesome. That's such good advice.
Good words. I love the idea of milestones just for my own work. Just
totally.
Put the milestones in because it's a long process. And if you can like get those little rewards along the way that you're on the right track, really, really important, even if you don't have a company.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Pooja, for joining us.
This is such a beautiful book.
This is such a fun conversation. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's show. If you have a question, a comment, or a guest suggestion, contact us at everythingcookbooks.com. We rely on listener support, and here are some ways to help. Subscribe to our newsletter at everythingcookbooks.substack.com. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen, and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Order books mentioned on the show through our affiliate page at bookshop.org, shop our t-shirts, sweatshirts, and other great merch, or buy us a round of coffee. Reach out about advertising on the show or becoming a sponsor. Thank you to our editor, Abby Circatella. Until next time, keep on writing, reading, and cooking.